You are watching and listening to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. I'm Chad Wilson. That's Emil Calomino. And we are ready to come full force right at you. Week 6 of the football season. We're going by college football, obviously. College football started ahead of the NFL. So we're into week 6, week 5 of the NFL coming at you fast and furious. And we've got a lot to get to in the show. Emil and I are going to end this show going head to head. But before we do that, we're going to recap college football picks from last week. Give you a fresh new set because we need to start getting things done, Emil. I am thoroughly embarrassed by my college football performance last week. You're talking about a guy that was, I was just killing it in college football last year.
I think you were at the end of the year. I can go look it up, but you were 13 games or something over. You had a good year.
I think I hit 3 out of
over. We killed it in college last year. I don't know what's happening so far.
That's all right. Here's my solemn promise to you as a customer. We're going to get our act together in college football. So we've got that coming up. We've got an off-the-sheet pick for you. Emil's got one. I got one. It's a game maybe you're not really paying attention to because it won't be on your local television. But we think we've got some great winners for you. We're going to recap the NFL action, give you our NFL picks. And like I said at the end, Emil and I are going to go head-to-head on a couple of games here. You guys decide who you want to trust this week. So head-to-head segment is going to end this thing. And I'm going to do a little, favor for you guys. I know prize picks and player props are really a really great thing for guys out there. And so I've got 3 that I really, really like this week. I'm going to present them for you. And for you Survivor Pool people, Emil is going to drop his Survivor Pool pick for you before we get out of here today. So let's not waste any time, Emil. You have to do it. So let's just get it out of the way. Let's take our medicine, tell the folks how we didn't do in college football last week.
Last week was a tough week. Again, we've had some bad beats and bad picks combination. This year, we're both sitting through week 5 at 5-10. I was 1-2 last week. You were 0-3. I'll give you yours first. Yours were Ole Miss did what Ole Miss does. And shame on you and everybody else, including myself, who thought Ole Miss had finally changed. Kentucky walked in there, and I know Kentucky took Georgia to the map, but that was at Kentucky.
I really thought Ole Miss would run Kentucky out of their mode.
I thought that game would be similar to what South Carolina did to Kentucky, because Kentucky is not a very offensive team, let's put it that way. And as you said to me during the game, you texted me, they're just playing keep away, and that's kind of what Ole Miss allowed to happen in that game. They couldn't stop them, so you took a loss there. Auburn crapped the bed in that game.
Did they?
They had, I believe, a 21-10 lead. You had them plus 1.5. You were looking solid, and then they did what Auburn in the last 5 or 6 years has been doing. They became a mediocre team real quick, and Oklahoma snuck in and won that ball game. Even though, if you were watching the ball game, it felt like Auburn controlled more on a play-to-play basis. Like if you were doing a pro football focus type of thing, kind of felt like Auburn had control, but at the end, they didn't have control of the most important thing, the scoreboard. They lost. Baylor was kind of looking like a horrible pick, and then they got themselves back in the game, and I hate to say it.
No, they decided we'll just play one half of football for some reason.
Yeah, they just ran out of time. They lost 34-28 to BYU, who's sort of a surprise this year. They're always a tough team, but this year, they're undefeated at this point. So you were 0-3. Me, you were at the game I took on Friday. I had your Miami Hurricanes giving 19.5 Virginia Tech, and they made that game a lot more interesting than it needed to be, right down to the final play, which, by the way, folks, that never should have been ruled a catch on the field for any of you out there confused.
Yeah, I'm on another podcast called Built on Green Tree that, I'd hope a lot of people would take some time to go watch. And we were talking about that, and we really said, I think the referees were hedging their bets there. You figure you're in the city of Miami on a Friday night. I think if we call this thing not a catch, then we go and review it, and then it is a catch, we might have a hard time getting to the parking lot and getting home.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're probably right. That's a good assessment. So I took a loss there, and this is one I want to just give a pro tip here. We score our picks on the show on the line at the time of us making the pick when we do this podcast, and that's just how we do it. I lost on Louisville plus 6.5. Frankly, I would never take a loss on this game. When you're in today's day and age, if you're putting a wager in, you have the ability to pay a little extra juice and get that to an even number.
Tell the
So
folks typically how much a half point is going to cost.
it's less in college than a pro game. Points are more meaningful in a pro game. So a half a point in a pro game might move you from 110 to 125, depending on the game. In a game like this, you're probably paying 5 to 7. So you're going 110 to 117 or 115. Nobody here, I shouldn't say that. I assume no one here is moving $50,000 a game. We don't have professionals. So my point is that's a small amount to pay to get a push here and get your money back. So that's just a pro tip. I mean, we're going to score it the way we score it. But
we like pro tips here on the Two Chumps Football Podcast. So folks at home, write that one down.
And then finally, our lone winner in college was a game I felt good about, Illinois plus 18. Penn State is to me a little, well, they might embarrass me next week. I won't say it yet. But let's just put it this way. They're ranked number 7. I expected more from a number 17 than Penn State. They did what Penn State does. They mucked this game up. It was 21-7. It wasn't the most exciting game. You got the cover. I don't think you ever felt in jeopardy with Illinois in this game. So that was the lone winner. That's where we're sitting. So we got to fix it. We're 5-10, each of us. We got to get on a run. People who follow the show know what we did last year in college.
Absolutely. And I feel firmly that we will get that done. Before we do get to the picks, though, Emil, at this point, we usually recap the important games that we didn't pick, but there's only one game really to talk about, Emil, and that was the thriller we were treated to on Saturday night, Alabama versus Georgia. Just a little side story here for me. Game is 30-14 or something like that, and I'm just watching Alabama. I'm seeing Georgia struggling to get out from behind the woodshed, but Alabama keep pulling them back there and laying the hammer down on these guys. And I got to a point where I said, "Hey," I turned to Carmen and said, "Hey, you want to watch something else? We've been at this."
That's the surrender. That's the surrender.
Yeah, you know what I mean. This might be Netflix time. Yeah. Let's open up one of these thousands of streaming services that we're paying for, and let's get our money's worth. And to her credit, Emil, she said, "Nah, let's just stick here and watch this. There's time on the clock. They might come back." In my mind, I'm like, okay, whatever. She's ever the optimist. She's won on that before too. So I'll give her some credit there. I want to credit her. I want to, at this time, give her some credit for not allowing me to miss out on one of the all-time thrillers, because as I sat there and watched, Alabama became Georgia in the first half. Georgia became Alabama in the first half. These two teams switched clothes, and somehow we ended up with this massive thriller, Emil. It was one for the ages.
Well, I'm not going to lie to the audience. I was sitting there. I had a 5-leg parlay. I took Louisville plus 7, so I got a push. It became a 4-leg. The other 3 were in. And I had Georgia. So 28-0. I'm like, well, it was just a bad pick.
Oh, man. You had to be a ton of emotion.
I had them in a pick. They get up 34-33. I'm doing my touchdown dance in the living room. No sooner do I spike the pillow than the kid from Alabama was running down the sidelines, and I got what I deserved. I jinxed myself.
You're famous for the jinxes, but just as fast as Georgia got that lead, their first of the game, Alabama snatched it back. The secondary play in this game, and obviously I'm going to make a comment on stuff like this, was not very good. Just the way that both Beck and Milroe were able to throw the ball up down the field and get what they want. If it wasn't a penalty, it was a big play. Not only was it a big catch, it was a big run after the catch.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a lot of yak in this game.
Yeah, I'm betting both of these secondaries are having a rough week of practice right now. The film session had to be absolutely ridiculous. And we'll talk about Ryan Williams, 17-year-old wide receiver, just going absolutely crazy on what you could have called the number 1 team in the nation going into this game. No disrespect to Texas. Obviously, those two were considered 1 and 2 going into this game. This kid who should probably be looking to make some kind of pass at a girl in the locker, near the lockers to go to his prom, is out here killing Georgia.
Oh, yeah, he had a game. And I mean, I won't say what I texted you here because they're still college players. But the effort on the last play from the Georgia kid wasn't there.
Yeah, folks got it in Miami.
At the end of
I'm
that
thinking
game,
about your tech right
yeah.
now. Yes,
I mean,
we
I'm
will
not going
not
to say
reveal
what
that to people
the
at home.
effort wasn't there. I mean, that ball. I mean, this is the end of the game. The game's on the line. That ball either has to be caught or end up on the ground. And
You've
I
got
don't.
to mug that kid. You've got to take his helmet off. You've got to grab his face mask. And, as a defensive back, I don't advocate those kind of things. But if I'm a Georgia fan, that's what I need to have happen. You've got to pull that kid's head something. You can't just let him catch that football.
Well, as a coach in that situation, as an offensive coach, and you coach, ball at both sides, if you're throwing the ball to the guy in that situation, usually on one of those ISO plays, you're throwing it to a guy that will do that, I would hope. I mean,
This was a bigger wide receiver who had been having his way, especially on that drive. You've got to go be a bully at that point. You've got to be DeAndre Hopkins. You've got to be
Johnson doing there.
Yeah, you've got to be Megatron. You got to be somebody. You got to anybody but who you were on that last play.
Yeah,
but,
so anyway, it was a great game. I'm not sure these two teams will see each other again.
I would have Georgia in the rematch, whether it was neutral or definitely if it happened in Athens. I would have Georgia in the rematch, but it would be a good game, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. This Southeast Conference got very, very interesting this past weekend because of Mississippi showing us, I think, who they are. I know everybody's allowed a booger game, but Mississippi has those booger games a lot in those situations. I'm not sure they're anything other than a bully, but I think between Tennessee, Texas, and these two teams, it's going to be interesting to see.
It's going to be a tough fight.
Who gets to that championship game.
Yeah, definitely going to be a tough fight. All right, time for us to get into these picks and clean up our act, Emil. We just told the fans just how much we have vomited all over our shoes so far in the season. So it's time for us to get right and get these picks shelled out. That's what the people came for. They want to see us rise.
You go first in the pros. We're going to keep these short and sweet. I'm starting with, this is a pro tip game, folks. I'm scoring this with the odds we're using. Please, 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 if you're using this, get the 7, okay? I'm grabbing Syracuse plus 7. I think Syracuse is a very underrated team this year, and I think they can be a real pain in the stones. I'm taking them plus 6.5 on the show, just for scoring purposes. McCord seems to be the kind of guy that can move that football team up and down the field. They had a tough loss against Stanford at home. So I saw the end of that game. I watched the fourth quarter, 26-24. I think Syracuse is a strong play this week, plus 6.5, excuse me. Grab the 7, though. Next game, we have Iowa playing Ohio State. This is a game purely, I'm looking at situations. Ohio State's got Oregon on tap next. They just blew out Michigan State. They're feeling good about themselves. Iowa's offensively challenged, but not as bad as they have been in previous seasons. My partner here loves the way Iowa plays defense, and I believe them. They are a solid defensive football team. I think Ohio State will be distracted enough, at least for the first half of this game, to not be able to fully recover from the distraction and cover what's a big number here. I'm going to grab Iowa plus 20 in this game, thinking I get a distracted Ohio State team, kind of looking ahead to Oregon, overlooking a boring Iowa team, but that's what makes Iowa Iowa. They're boring, but then when you look up, you're losing. So give me Iowa plus 20. And then finally, what I said about Ole Miss stands. Everybody's going to run to the window with Ole Miss this week, thinking they're angry. Well, they're angry, but they're playing a pretty talented South Carolina team, pretty well coached defensively. A South Carolina team that, by the way, and I'm not using the transitive property here. And for those of you who don't know what that means, go look it up. It doesn't work.
Look at my math wins.
Yes, it doesn't work in sports. I understand that South Carolina beating Kentucky by 25 means nothing with respect to this matchup. I'm just purely looking at South Carolina grabbing 9.5 points in this game. And I think Mississippi is going to be in a dogfight on the road. And in the end, yeah, they'll probably win the game because they have better talent, but I don't think they're getting a double-digit win. So give me South Carolina plus 9.5.
All right, recapping things here. My partner, his cleanup weekend in college football is Syracuse. What's the number? We're getting there again.
6.5.
Syracuse plus 6.5. He thinks Iowa is going to hang close against Ohio State, plus 20, and South Carolina, plus 9.5 in their game. I'm going to keep this thing short and sweet as well on my end. Here's where I'm looking at. You know, I was a closet UCLA fan and was growing up, but I am going to be that UCLA fan this week. I think this is a tough game for Penn State. Penn State has shown, I don't know if we can trust them with these big numbers. I know they laid it on Kent State. I get that. On paper, Penn State is a dominant, match. They're the dominant team on paper in this football game. But what I'm seeing is UCLA starting to build just a little bit. And this is a team, quite frankly, that plays better away from home than they do at home, and I don't blame them. There's like 11 people in the stands when you go to a UCLA football game this week. I think bits and pieces here, I see them getting better on. I really had Penn State as best, the 3-touchdown favorite in this game. They're laying 4. I don't trust Penn State with that kind of stuff, so I'm going to roll with UCLA on this game. They are yet to put a full game together. I think this is a time where they do that, and they kind of make their stand here. Emil, if they get blown out by more than 28 in this football game, in UCLA, it's just going to be an absolute disaster this year. I think they're going to do all that they can to avoid that. I'm going to go now to Tennessee versus Arkansas. Give me UCLA plus 28, by the way. Tennessee laying 13.5 versus Arkansas. Give me Tennessee. And I think this number is low, and I see what odds makers are trying to do to this here, and I'm not going to fall for the trick. Tennessee had a big win a couple of weeks ago against Oklahoma. Then they get a week off. I think odds makers know typically that's probably a bad spot for a football team. And they've decided to drop this number down here. I think they have overcorrected on that. I think I like Tennessee. I'd have them as a 3-touchdown favorite in this game. If they're going to be laying less than 2 touchdowns against an Arkansas team that just doesn't really have the horses. There might be a little bit of fumbling around early in this contest because, Tennessee might come out a little flat. But at the end of the day, they're better at quarterback. They've got an awesome run game. They're playing well on defense. They showed that at Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago. And when the rubber hits the road, Tennessee is just going to prove their might here and probably run Arkansas out of the building. It won't take long for Arkansas to start having some doubts. So give me Tennessee minus 13.5. And then finally, Missouri traveling to Texas A&M. I just think Missouri is the better football team here. Texas A&M does have the better defense. Missouri has the better offense. And I think Missouri is very dynamic in that run game. I think they can pierce that front for Texas A&M. They've got a good decision maker at quarterback who can kind of get out of there and make some plays. At the end of the day, they'll have some back and forth. But Tennessee's inability to really put drives together, I know they're a little more dynamic with the redshirt freshman quarterback in there, but I just don't trust them to keep putting enough drives together to match what it is Missouri is doing. And I'm getting points here with Missouri. 2.5 of them, I believe. So I'm going to take Missouri plus 2.5 in this football game. And that's how I'm going to wipe the puke off of my shoes and get right back into this thing in college.
Let me recap my partner's picks here. As us USC fans say, he's taking FUCLA plus 28. He's got Tennessee minus 13.5 and Missouri plus 2.5 against A&M. A couple quick points I want to touch on with your game, Missouri, A&M. I find that interesting. I like Missouri as well. That's a big game for Notre Dame, and they're going to try to wedge Notre Dame into this playoff as best they can. There's 12 teams now; they get viewing audiences. It's like if the NFL could pick their teams, they'd make sure they let the Cowboys in every year to get an audience for at least one game. Okay, so Notre Dame, you're saying where do the wins come from that justify overcoming a horrible loss at home to Northern Illinois? Well, you got to have A&M, right? So you need A&M to put up a 9-3 season minimum. And you need Louisville to put up a 9-3 season. And you got to hope USC keeps winning and then you beat them. Because without those 3 teams winning, if you look at the rest of the Notre Dame schedule, it's the service academies. I mean, it's some other MAC schools. I mean, it's a bad Florida State team this year in name only. So I find that game very interesting. I think Notre Dame fans will be watching it.
Yeah, one way or another, they'll find a way to slide Notre Dame in there if they can continue winning. Have no doubt about that. All right, Ty, we're going to move on to our off-the-sheet picks. And this is, as you can see by the games, we were in the Power 4 conference. That's the games that's going to be on television. And that's usually where we focus our picks on. But we just want to go slide into something that's off the sheet, a game you might not have been thinking of. And we are here coming to the rescue to throw that one pick in there. Listen, you're looking for a game to throw into your parlay. You're out of Power 4 games that you feel good about. You can grab Emil's pick. You can grab my pick. You can grab both picks, and you can do something with it. So, my friend, give me your off the sheet.
This segues beautiful into what I just said, because as I criticize the Notre Dame schedule, I will tell you there's 2 service academies this year of the 3 playing some really good football, Army and Navy. They're both undefeated. Last Friday, Army went and just, I think it was Friday, absolutely waxed Temple. Now, you say, well, it's Temple. But Temple had won the week before at home against a decent Utah State club that had already played USC in Utah. So I looked at, Army hung 45 points on them. They're undefeated. They're playing not a good Tulsa team this year, okay? Tulsa's struggling. They're 2-3. You can go look at their sheet. It's an up and down performance. They have some blowout losses. Army's a tough team to play anyway. And the thing with Army is there's no letdown with Army. You get their best every week. That's one of the beauties of the service academies. They show up and they're going to play hard every week. They may lose. They may not play well, but they're going to play hard. This is a game where I think they can only not cover if they didn't play hard, and you're not getting that. So I like Army minus 12.5 over Tulsa. I think they just blow them out the same way they did Temple.
All right, and we're going to leave it at that. My off-the-sheet pick. I'm also messing around with the service academies. 2 out of those 3 are actually playing each other. It's Navy traveling to take on Air Force. Man, Navy has really been getting it done this year. They have just been a really strong football team. They've surprised some people. They're doing what Navy does, running that ball down your throat, but they also have some balance, throwing for 178 yards a game, not typical for the service academies. Navy has really looked strong. That means give me Air Force, because they're 9.5-point underdogs at home. Right. Air Force can play good defense. They're only allowing 351 yards of total defense. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they can control the line of scrimmage. They've got a really good ground game, and what's an Air Force team without that? On the other side of that, Navy allows 435 yards a game, 158 on the ground. You know who's dominated this matchup of late? Air Force has. Air Force has won 4 in a row in this matchup, and I just think Air Force is a thorn in the side of Navy. And you know what? Also, Air Force is 0-4 ATS on the season. Time for Air Force to step up and get a win. I think that's why we've got a little extra cheese on this thing. And that and the fact that Air Force won the game last year, Navy's good this year, and they want to make this a whole revenge thing. I think this number is too high for Navy on the road. They're coming off of a blowout. Now they're facing this rival who they've had a problem with. I think Air Force finds a way to keep this thing close. I think it's a field goal game. So give me Air Force plus 9.5.
If you look at the pattern of the round robin with the service academies playing for the Commander's Trophy, generally those games are most years not very high scoring. I mean, if you get into the 20s, that's a lot. And when you're looking at that type of just general pattern, 9.5 points, regardless of record in a rivalry game like that, where both teams like to run the ball, it's a lot of points. So
yeah, absolutely. So those are off the sheet picks. You've got Army minus 11.5 from Emil, and I'm sticking also with a service academy. I'm going to take Air Force at home plus 9.5. So time now for us to move over to the NFL, where things are a lot more rosy, and we're more happy to speak about what's going on that side of things. Emil, tell the folks how we did last week, how we're doing on.
For anybody who's not a longtime listener, we did well in the NFL last year too. We had a big year last year. I mean, if you followed us last year, we recapped it at the beginning of the season. You made a lot of dough, and generally we're good in the NFL. But this year, I feel like it's weird. Like usually the NFL is more of a grind for me. We're doing well there. Last week, my partner put up a 3-0 week for you.
Cha-ching.
Yeah. Cha-ching, right. He was 3-0.
Second one of the season, by the way.
Yes. He's sitting at 9-3 on the year. I mean, incredible. You had the Raiders over the Browns. Nice pick there. You were -2. We both like the Chargers plus 7.5 against the Chiefs. The Chargers chargered in that game because
that thing got hairy at the end, my friend.
It did, but they had a chance early. It looked like they could pull the upset, but they lost 17-10. You got to win there. Bucks, easy one. +2, easy win over the Eagles. The Eagles are a broken team in many ways, and Tampa exploited that. So 3-0, you're 9-3. I went 2-1.
By the way, it was good to see us on, two games that we agreed on just absolutely come home with the ATS wins.
Yeah, and I
For
say
our
this all
strength
the
and
time. I
unity.
say this all the time for our audience, but we do not discuss our picks before games because we don't want to affect each
Influence.
other's thinking. So when we're on a game together, be what it may, it happens more in the NFL because there's less games. Generally, there's strong plays over the years, and I was on the Bucks and Chargers with Chad, so 2 wins for me. I took an unfortunate loss on the Rams. I felt the Rams let some opportunities go early in that game with the Bears where they kicked field goals, didn't score touchdowns, turned the ball over. And in the end, the Bears, without a great offensive effort, scored 24 points, won the game 24-18. I was only getting 2.5. Took a loss there. I'm sitting at 7-5 on the year. Since I went first in college, you hit the NFL here.
Hey, sports fans, if you're looking to take your game day excitement to a whole new level, then you got to check out Bovada Sportsbook. Whether you're into football, basketball, it's baseball, playoff times, pretty much any sport, Bovada has everything you need. Best odds, live betting, and fast, secure payouts. And here's the best part. When you sign up today, Bovada is giving you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's up to $250. That's free money to get you started just for joining the action. It's super easy to sign up, and they've got you covered with all the top games, player props, and more. Ready to bet, win, and repeat? Head over to Bovada and get in the game. Check out the link down in the description below, and let's go get those winners.
Sure. I'm all for that. All right. Here's where we're talking about in the NFL this week for me. I am going to roll with the big bad Baltimore Ravens. I have not been impressed at all, Emil, with Cincinnati so far this season. Just don't love what I'm seeing from them. Yes, they got the win last week against Carolina, who came in a little hot after they went out to Las Vegas, almost said Los Angeles there, and took care of the Raiders. But, I'll talk more about the Raiders here in just a second. But I just don't like what I'm seeing from Cincinnati. I know everyone likes Joe Burrow. We know Jamar Chase is great, but I'm just not sure what else they got. They really look like they're missing Joe Mixon, and I don't trust Cincinnati right now in a game against a surging Baltimore Ravens football team that's finally figured out how to do the both Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry thing in the backfield. That looks like it's going to be a serious problem for the rest of the NFL. Buffalo really kind of could have called themselves the best team in the NFL coming into that game on Sunday night, and they got completely ran up off the field. So I think Baltimore, with this low number at 2.5, they're just a better football team right now. If this number drifted somewhere past, 4 or something like that, and we got a little too confident in Baltimore, I might have been trying to look at Cincinnati. But with this thing under a field goal, you're telling me you think Cincinnati's going to beat a Baltimore team right now, and I'm just not with it. Typically, I like to go against teams that won on prime time in front of everybody, but the odds makers did not do Cincinnati any favors here. So give me Baltimore minus 2.5. Another 2.5 favorite that I like is Denver back home after a nice kind of muddy win in so many respects versus the New York Jets. I don't think people are respecting that. What I am respecting is the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders are looking like the Raiders that we've come to know over the last decade and a half. Yes, new coach, but seems like the same old problems right now in the midst. As we are filming this, they're trying to find trade partners to get Devontae Adams out of town. So this thing's looking like it's unraveling really fast. I picked up a win with them last week, but I just don't like the way that they played in that game against the Cleveland Browns. I thought I would see more out of the Raiders in a game like that, given the situation, and I didn't really see that. So I don't trust them on the road against a Denver team that's only going to get better because Bo Nix is a rookie quarterback starting off this year. Yes, he didn't light it on fire last week against the Jets, but he did what he had to do to get the win. They got the win against Tampa Bay 2 weeks ago. I just think Denver's heading in this direction. They're heading up. Las Vegas heading down. Give me Denver as a small favorite at home. Speaking of small favorites, Minnesota is home against the New York Jets. This line looks suspicious. I think it's a reverse setup, Emil, if we can call things that. Just looks like a reverse setup for me. Everyone loves the Jets. Everyone loves Aaron Rodgers. And they just think Aaron Rodgers off of, the whatever you want to call it, the embarrassment, whatever the case may be, is just going to battle back and throw the team on his back. Well, I don't know what he has for a team right now, and I get it. This game's going to be across the pond. Give me Minnesota, though. Minnesota's just playing really, really good football. Sam Darnold looks like the quarterback everyone thought he was going to be when he came out. The defense is biting. The run game looks great with Aaron Jones. They just look like a better football team right now, and a more mature football team that looks like they can head across the pond, do what they got to do, and get the win against a Jets team that might be reeling here. Their game against the Patriots aside, Patriots just not really good this year. I don't know if I can put much stock into that. So give me Minnesota over then good old London as a 2.5-point favorite.
My friend is Mr. 2.5. So all these lines are minus 2.5. He's got the Ravens, the Broncos, and the Vikings for you. Simple.
I know what I like.
He knows what he likes. 2.5, because it ain't 3. Another pro tip, you can comment if you disagree, of course. I think we need all of us to recalibrate the way we handicap the NFL. And I think the first month of the season, you're going to need to make adjustments as the season goes along, more so than other years. Because for those of you who are old enough that remember the infamous dress rehearsal, which would always be the third preseason game out of the 4, the starters would play well into the third quarter. Those days are gone. We're down to 3 preseason games, fine by me. Starters barely play at all. So I think September, a lot of these games become almost preseason games that count, because I'm not saying they're not trying to win. I'm saying they're just trying to figure it out. And I think you're going to see some teams in October, which we're in now, believe it or not, October, as we record this, some teams are going to take off, and some teams that have really good Septembers are going to come back to earth, because I think there's some of that going on. With that said, let me get into my picks, and I'm going to go against the team that I took last week in Tampa Bay. I think this is a tough spot for them. They waxed the Eagles, a team they played in the playoffs. They go on the road in the division. Anybody who listens to the show knows I'm not a Kirk Cousins lover, but he's a competent quarterback, and the Falcons seem to be putting something together here. They beat the Saints last week, who had a fast start to their season. They're home again. You got to win your home games in your division. They're giving 1.5 against the Bucks. I'm going to grab the Atlanta Falcons to win this. That's basically what they got to do, win the game. I think they're going to win the game. So give me Atlanta minus 1.5. You touched on a game that with the Ravens, they played the Bills last week. The Bills are not, I don't see them losing 2 in a row. I know it's back-to-back road games. They're playing a Houston team that is, the record's there, but I'm not really impressed yet with Houston. I thought they'd be a little bit better than they were. I think the Bills are going to come in here with their hair on fire, and I actually feel they'll dominate this football game, and I'm giving only 1 point. So give me the Bills coming off a loss on the road -1. And then finally, everybody on the show knows I'm a Cowboys fan. I haven't been high on them all year. I don't know if I'm high on them even yet, but if you're going to play a team with 2 of your better defensive players out, DeMarcus Lawrence is out about 4 to 5 weeks with a foot injury. They put him on temporary IR. Parsons is going to miss the first game of his playing career going back to high school. This is the kind of team you want those kind of pass rushers off against, because I'm not sure getting after Justin Fields, like getting after him, is as good as containing him. I think when you have guys flying upfield like Parsons, Fields is coming out the back door. I think in a game like this where Dallas's pass rush is more of push a little and jump at the line of scrimmage, not a bad strategy against Fields. Make him throw the football into tight windows. The Cowboys usually cover pretty well, and you're getting 2.5 here. This game should be low scoring. Steelers don't run up and down the field. I think it's a perfect situation to grab a Cowboys team who has underwhelmed so far this year, but you're getting points. So give me Dallas plus 2.5. I'll recap it for you. Falcons -1.5, Bills -1, Cowboys plus 2.5.
That's right. We had a little bit of a mix-up there. So brain fart there for me. So you've got the recap on the NFL games for this week. That's where we've been hitting hard. So I'm not telling you to get out of character, but hey, you can rest that thing on our NFL picks and feel really good about it that you'll get some bills paid at the end. At the end of this week, folks. Hey everyone, are you tired of the hassle of finding last-minute tickets to your favorite events? Look no further than Game Time. The Game Time ticketing app is your go-to source for scoring amazing deals on last-minute tickets to sports, games, concerts, theater shows, and more. And with my exclusive discount code, TrueFan, you can get a discount on your first purchase. With Game Time's new Game Time Picks feature, you don't have to sort through thousands of tickets. You get only the best deals, and that's right up until the last minute. Their easy-to-use app shows a detailed view from the seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting. No more having your view blocked. You don't want to sit in the sun. You get to see all of that before you make your purchase. And the best part, their all-in pricing shows you exactly what you're going to pay before you get out your credit card. There's no more waiting for that other shoe to drop at checkout. So whether you're a diehard sports fan, a music lover, or you're just looking for a fun night out with your girl, Game Time has you covered. Download the Game Time app today, and don't forget to use the promo code TrueFan for an exclusive discount on your first purchase. Don't miss out on the action. Get your tickets now with Game Time. All right, time for our head-to-head matchup. This is where I like one side, Emil likes the other side of a game. You guys are going to have to decide just who you trust, who made the better argument here for their side, and you can run with it. Maybe it's a game you were thinking about. Maybe it's a game that you needed a little push on. It's head-to-head. We're going to figure it out. Emil, tell the folks who's up first.
Well, the first game, we got Oregon home giving 24 to Michigan State. You know, to be honest, neither of us were high this year on Michigan State. Probably still aren't, to be honest, but they're 3-2. They've played some decent football, haven't been really embarrassing themselves. The two losses, one was to Ohio State. They did get waxed in that game last week. Other loss was, I believe, a 4-point loss. I think it was 23-19, sticks in my head. They're grabbing 24 points here. I'm taking Michigan State if I'm playing this game. If I must play this game and I'm sitting in front of a TV, I'm going to take Michigan State for the simple reason, another situational play for me. Oregon has Ohio State next. Oregon has tended to play down to opponents in these situations this year. Classic example, the Idaho game. They won 24-14. I think they outgained them like 470 to 200. They just seem to be a tick off in offensively the way you need to be to cover these huge lines. Couple turnovers on long drives. These games become very hard to cover. I don't think they're fully focused.
Emil, I hate to interject here. Go ahead. But if Michigan State, I think I did pick up a win with them earlier this year with Maryland, and they did me right. I think they got you a win earlier this year with against Boston College. I would say let's not fall in love with Michigan State, because what they showed me last year is, yes, the mask is starting to come off, and Michigan State's inability to score touchdowns and continue to move the football is going to be a problem. I hear what you're saying about Oregon. But over the last two games, Oregon is starting to look like Oregon. And I know they've got a big game coming up this week. They still need a little bit more courage. And you know how you get courage? You slap the hell out of somebody and you be a real big bully. I don't know if I can trust Michigan State going on the road to a place like Oregon. Do you honestly feel like if Oregon really has this thing going offensively, that Michigan State can stay in this matchup?
No, but what I do think happens in a game like this is even if Oregon jumps out to a lead, they focus changes with players around halftime, like, wow, we got Ohio State next week. We're up 28-7 here at the half. And as we all know in football is not the kind of sport to relax in, because the minute you relax, it's hard to unrelax, okay? So I just think that somehow they leave Michigan State in this game because Michigan State doesn't have their full attention. Hey, I could have been cute here and said, grab the team wearing green.
Emil, I'm wondering if Oregon decides to relax, can Michigan State even do anything about it? Here's what we've got. 3 weeks ago, Michigan State, 40 points scored against Prairie View A&M. The next week, 19 points against Boston College. Last week, 7 points against Ohio State. You see where this is trending?
Wait, stop. Boston College is a pretty solid football team. I mean, a team.
Why? Because they beat Florida State?
What are they, 4-1?
I mean, I get it, but who have they played? Like Florida State is a laughing stock right now.
Stop it already. If Michigan State gets to 19 in this game, I feel they'll cover the spread. I don't think they're giving up 50 points.
Michigan State getting to 19 points. I don't know what to compare that to right now. Michigan State away from home getting to 9. This is an offensively challenged team.
Listen. We stayed on this long enough, folks. You make your decision. All I'm telling you is I think Oregon's not focused. If you got the jitters with your cell phone in hand, and that's the only game in the bar.
I think the Ducks roll, man. I think the Ducks really roll in this one. I don't trust Michigan.
Game that we disagree with in the pros.
Kansas City is traveling to New Orleans. I'm a New Orleans Saints lover, Emil. I'm definitely a New Orleans Saints lover. I'm just not a lover of them this week because the odds makers didn't do them any favors. As you and I learned last week when Kansas City was taking on the Chargers and we're here wringing our hands at the end, it was another Kansas City Chiefs special, wasn't it?
What's the line in this game that you're showing?
I have 4.5, but I don't even care if it's 5. It's under a touchdown. Okay. That's all I need to know.
Go down the Kansas City slate. I mean, they got 2 7-point wins. They got a 1-point win against the Bengals thanks to a referee somewhere. At the end of the year, we know the Chiefs are going to have 4 wins out of their 4.
Did you hear that part? That's the part that worries me. Thanks to a referee somewhere, this game is going to slide in their favor late in the game. They will miss an obvious holding call by their left tackle, or there'll be a receiver fully running off the line of scrimmage a second before the ball is snapped, and they'll miss it, and it'll be a touchdown in the end zone.
I'm just seeing over the years, there's always a conspiracy in the last 15 to 20 years, because the last 2 dominant dynasties have been the Patriots and Chiefs, quarterback-driven in the new NFL. And I'm not saying the refs are in on it, but it almost seems like an umpire who gives Greg Maddox 4 inches off the plate because he knows he's a strike thrower. It's almost like if there's any doubt in their mind, they're erring to the side of the Patriots and Chiefs over the last 20 years. If there was a semi-late hit, Tom Brady was getting a flag. If there's any question when Pat Mahomes throws a pass that it should have been caught, well, the flags are coming. So I hear you.
So are you saying you agree with me?
But what I'm trying to tell you is if they need that flag at the end, it's probably going to be win a close game, because I think the Chiefs are just one of those teams. They'll win a lot of games this year. I'm not sure they're going to win a lot of blowout games. They're just not made that way. They play hard to believe. The Chiefs have become a defensive football team.
I feel you. Emil, do you realize that this is a primetime football game in Kansas City? The whole going on. The NFL is not. This is when Kansas City shine. This is when the referees hug, kiss, get their envelope, and they're going to make it happen. No, in all seriousness, I'm not into what if there's a script. All right. But Mahomes' magic at the end, I don't know, man. New Orleans is going to get their act together. I just don't know that it's going to happen this week in Kansas City.
Well, you guys have it. So the NFL game we're fighting on, I would take the Saints. If I'm sitting there prime time, I'm jonesing for a bet. I'd take the points, the 4.5 to 5 points. My friend,
that's when you're under a touchdown.
The Chiefs and the refs are going to win every game this year.
Yeah, when you're under a touchdown with the Chiefs, be very, very leery unless they're playing the Bengals, who are their kryptonite.
Are they ever going to lose?
At some point, I just don't think it's going to be this week.
All right, time now for our prize picks, player props segment of the show. All right, I've got 3 good ones for you in the NFL this week. And, I know these are rising favorite bets that people like to make. You could call it prize picks or whatever other app that you use out there. But these are definitely picking up in some steam. And I've got some opinions on it. I'm going to start out west in the San Francisco versus Arizona game. As you heard Emil talk about, he really likes San Francisco in this game. And I think San Francisco does it through the air. Why do I think that? Because Arizona really struggled in their rush defense this week. That's been a big talk about the problems for Arizona, aside from, of course, blaming the quarterback, Kyler Murray. People are starting to talk about the defense and their lack of ability to stop the run. It was glaring against Detroit, but Detroit runs on everybody. but it was also glaring again this week against Washington as Cliff Kingsbury came in there and absolutely dismantled this football team. One of the big things that happen in a football with a football team after they have been blown out, you start looking at physicality. That's the first thing you start attacking the next week. And I just think Arizona is going to attempt to come out and be physical. I do think we're going to see more five-man fronts against the San Francisco offense, who is running the ball very well as Arizona cuts on the film this week and they're putting together a game plan. They are seeing how Mason is coming downhill for San Francisco, and San Francisco has always been able to run the ball really well. I really think Arizona's focus this week is going to be on stopping the run, and that means that's going to open doors for guys out wide. We're talking about Ayuk. We're talking about Debo, who's back. We're talking about Juwan Jennings, but specifically Brandon Ayuk, who just got the money that he wanted this offseason, and they really need to get him going. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't really been Brandon Ayuk. And this is one game against one team that he can really get good with. The number right now is at 55.5, and I feel very strongly that Brandon Ayuk is going to go over that number as Brock Purdy finds him this week. And he and Brandon Ayuk really start getting back more on tact. And I think if Arizona is focusing on stopping the run, I don't know that they can get things done in the secondary against San Francisco's passing game. And I think Brandon Ayuk is going to be one of the big beneficiaries of that. So 55.5 seems like a really, really low number. Talking about the Baltimore Ravens, who are one of my picks this week. Yes, we all saw what Derrick Henry did, especially on that first play from scrimmage against the Buffalo Bills. And you know who else saw it? The team they're playing against, the Cincinnati Bengals. They saw it. And one thing Cincinnati has been doing a pretty decent job against is against the run. The problem has been against the pass. And I know how Cincinnati is thinking here. We're going to let Lamar beat us with his arm. That's one of the fallacies that go on in this league, is that they don't think Lamar Jackson can beat you with his arm. Well, he can. Maybe not against the Kansas City Chiefs because they seem to have his number. But if you're going to sit back there and load up the line of scrimmage against Derrick Henry, which currently right now it looks like you're going to have to do, then you're going to open yourself up for a problem down the field. Now, I'm not here to try and tell you which one of these Baltimore receivers are going to go off. You'd probably say Zay Flowers, but right now you could say Zay Flowers and then it's Isaiah Likely, or you could say Isaiah Likely and it's Mark Andrews, or Aguilar decides to go off, or Bateman decides to go off. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to tell you that they have this number set very low at 86.5 rush yards for Derrick Henry. I think that's a trap for a lot of people. I think Cincinnati does everything that they can to take him out of the game. And I could see Derrick Henry having a game where he's around 50-something, 60-something yards here. And I think he's going to be under that 86.5 number. He scared the hell out of Cincinnati on film this week, and they're going to do what they have to do to take care of that. The Rams are back home, and they're taking on the Green Bay Packers. Rams just don't have any weapons out wide right now. And after seeing Matthew Stafford take a couple of really big hits in that game last week, I think Sean McVay and the offensive staff really say we're going to have to rely and lean on this running game. And Kyren Williams is a guy that you can lean on. He's a guy that can get you those yards, a really solid, underrated running back. And I think we're just going to see more out of him this week. I think we're going to see more of a reliance on him. To try and keep Green Bay's offense off the field, because that can be problematic, and the Rams defense just hasn't been world beaters. And B, to kind of not have Green Bay's pass rush pinning their ears and coming after Matthew Stafford. Because trust me, the last thing you need to have happen if you're the Los Angeles Rams this year is to have Matthew Stafford go down when you don't have Kupp and you don't have Puka Nacua. The last thing they want to see is that. So I think the Rams are going to rely a little more heavily on their ground game this week. This means this is probably a 100-yard week for Kyren Williams. And with this number set at 80.5, I feel really good that he is going to surpass that number, because it looks like it's going to be a big week for him. So those are my picks. Ayuk over 55.5 in receiving yards. Let's go under for 86.5 in Derrick Henry rush yards in this. Kyren Williams over 80.5. Those are your prize picks per week.
I'm going to give you a survivor pick real if you're still surviving. And frankly, if you are, you probably haven't used this team yet because they have 2 losses. So we're in week 5. If you're still in the pool, you probably haven't used them yet. This is the week to use the San Francisco 49ers. The Cardinals are kind of becoming, I was higher on the Cardinals than my partner. I thought Kyler Murray could mask a lot of their issues. That was evident on Sunday. I mean, the Commanders are better than people thought they were, but you don't lose 42-14 at home before you go on the road to play the bully of your division for the last 5 or 6 years. I think this is a game, as long as their quarterback's in, and he is, the 49ers are winning this game. They have better players. All you got to do is win in a survivor pool. Take the 49ers this week. Sleep comfortably.
Yeah, Emil, I'll tend to agree with you there. I thought I was kind of thinking the Cardinals were going to do something this year after that, home blowout win against the Rams, but the Rams look like a little bit of a disaster. And, San Francisco's already lost 2 games, so I got to go with you here. They're not going to fumble around against Arizona. They have a really good history against them. So we'll roll with that. All right, Emil, man, that's it. Going to let you ride out of here. We're going to let the folks here just marinate on all those great picks that we've given you. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Enjoy the games. Enjoy your picks this week. Don't go overboard. Don't OD. Do the right thing. We'll see you guys back here last week. For Emil Calomino, I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for watching and listening to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. We'll talk to you guys next week.